it was always that gorilla in the room that like everyone saw except for me. Like I was always the last person to know that I had a problem, but I was the one carrying the weight of the gorilla everywhere I went. So I was just truly exhausted after, whatever substance it is. It was about for a decade of me living the way I was living, and it wasn't getting any easier. If anything, it was getting a lot harder. Kind of came to a place I was just emotionally spent, and I started having panic attacks actually after shooting up, which was new to me. So I would, I'd fix up like 6 bags of heroin in a shot. And I'd have a panic attack right after doing it, which really scared me. It scared me because I knew the only way not around that was to use more. And what I was already using was a lot. So for the first time, I realized that I was at a crossroads again. Here we are at that crossroads again. And I knew it was on the other side of that. And, I was barely maintaining my job. I was holding on, but that wasn't really wasn't too productive. And, there was some like write-ups happened and all that. And, couldn't pay any bills. Only bills I paid were the credit card minimum, a car, and.
So there was a point that you just hit bottom, and there was nowhere else to go but up from that point where you said, listen, I'm at as low as it could go, and there needs to be a change.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to throw it back at you and play tennis with it, but I wouldn't call it a bottom.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I wouldn't call it a bottom, because I don't believe in tops. I just got to a place where life became unmanageable to the point where I'd realized it and that I wanted to probably do something about it, but I didn't know how to raise my hand and say 2 words. Those 2 words are help me. And I couldn't say those 2 words because I was so ashamed of what I was doing. And I was so ashamed for so long, it was impossible for me to say those 2 words. It wasn't until, I was in a relationship with Kate, and Kate's my former girlfriend. I know I mentioned 2 former girlfriends, but she's the last former girlfriend to my now fiance. So, she was living with me for like 6 months, and I was going through all this. And luckily enough, as fate may have it, like her sister-in-law is in recovery. And she finally confided in her. She was going through the same emotion and pain and all that I was. She just wasn't using the substances, so she needed to reach out to somebody and say something. She said something to her sister-in-law, and her sister-in-law kind of coached her on how to approach me. And one day, Kate did approach me. She met me with love. She met me with compassion, empathy, and then she asked. A very powerful question, which kind of let me open up. And it was a simple question of like, I see you're not, I don't see you're not doing too well. How bad is it? With that compassion, that love and empathy behind it, it spoke to like my resilient self inside who, my addiction had hijacked a long time ago, but I was finally able to come through, and I broke down in that moment, and I let it all go. I just cried my eyes out, and I just told her I was drowning. I've been drowning in it, and I don't know what to do. So it was extremely emotional for the both of us, and that was like the starting point of my turn to get well. And around that same time frame, I met another man in recovery, because my thing was, it wasn't like have that conversation and go to treatment, because the addiction, it doesn't want to get well, it wants to survive. It feeds off the negativity, and it had 10 years of negativity used against me to keep itself alive. So I struggled a lot with taking that next step to get well, to get treatment. And that man that I just talked about, his name's Adam. I was at a 12-step meeting. And those meetings is pretty much for people who, have a desire to stop drinking and drugging. And it was the first one I ever made, and it was down the block from where I lived. It was a basement meeting, and this guy, Adam, rolls up to me in a wheelchair. And, he says to me, "How are you?" And I was in a place that I couldn't answer verbally. I just cried my eyes out. I was hurting. I was hurting. I didn't have any answers of how to change it. And, here I am. I'm at a place where, I laugh because I put myself back in that position. They tell you there's an answer. They tell you don't have to live like this anymore. There's a way out. Mm-hmm. And I kind of just stuck around doing that for a little bit. And Adam, he would call me every day. He would text me. He would annoy the living shit out of me. Here's this man in recovery. He used to do what I do, and now he's trying to help me out, and he won't leave me alone. Right. It was awesome. Like, looking back on it, in the situation, it drove me nuts because all I wanted to do was not be around them. But that's my addiction, So he helped me out immensely, and it finally got to a point of him having to do like a 12-step call, and a 12-step call is kind of like in the community. It means someone's life is at risk. That person's life was mine. And a couple weeks after, Kate had talked to me, I had met Adam. I hadn't made it to treatment yet, and I was trying to, do outpatient counseling on my own and stop on my own, while doing outpatient counseling. It just wasn't working. I was still using and all that, off and on. But because it was off and on, my tolerance wasn't like it used to, and I would go back and I'd use a similar amount, and I'd get wrecked. I'd be off my ass, and I crashed my car and got a rental car, and here I am, still trying to stop. And Kate had called me, and I was just been done using it, and I was driving back to work, and she was like shopping. She dropped what she was doing. She drove to my office, and she found me behind the wheel, unresponsive, with the car running about 50 feet from the front door of my office. And she didn't call the paramedics or anybody. She just kept an eye on me. She didn't know if I was breathing or not. She kept calling me. I was out. I was in a strong nod or overdose. Anyway, I snapped out of it. I saw she called. I didn't call her back. I got out, walked around the car, got my briefcase out of the rental car, and I closed the door on the passenger side. And she was right on the other side of the door when it closed when I looked up. And she told me pretty much the relationship was over. You need to come back after work, get all your stuff, and you need help. And she walked away.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Subscribe to the show, like it, and comment. Also, if you want the audio version because you're traveling, you're in a car, and you can't watch it, you don't have time to watch the episodes, you could go in the show notes. There is a link provided. Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, whatever your pleasure may be. Join me and listen via the audio versions on those other platforms, okay? But I really like YouTube. I like the way it's working out. And if you can, subscribe. The more subscribers, the better the content I can provide you, and it costs you nothing. So I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.